So today we're going to be talking about building a WordPress plugin for our product catalog. So up until this point, we have covered everything from the concept of a product catalog, breaking down the different parts of the catalog, kind of taking it from concept idea, breaking it down into its individual pieces, and then breaking it down even further into the particular product, vendor, images, components of the catalog. We also talked about using data files, building a database for the back end of our product catalog for actually storing this information. We also built a Spring-based application to wire up our database to an actual application so we could see how we could insert and update information into our catalog from code. We then went on to build a MVC web application through Spring, which allowed us to have a full web-based interface, a nice little GUI that was very similar to some of the third-party apps out there, like DB Visualizer, the MySQL Connection Wizard tools that they have for visually interacting with your database. So we were able to then interact and actually add, edit, delete, and basically maintain our catalog through a website. Last time we talked about testing our applications using Selenium, the Selenium IDE, WebDriver, some different automation concepts and ways of testing our applications. Now, unfortunately, after I gave that presentation, Firefox has now updated to Firefox 56 and the Selenium IDE is now dead. There is currently no future plan for them to support that unless someone else joins the community real soon and helps. But if you want to go back and use that Selenium IDE, you will have to go back to a previous version of Firefox, probably 54, or just go back to the de facto one of 46. It's still a nice little tool. It still works for up to a certain level of Firefox, and it does help you in finding the CSS IDs and things like that. So just a little caveat from last time. I ran into that today, and I thought I'd throw that out just to kind of give you guys a heads up. So what are we looking at today? Well, today we're going to actually create a WordPress plugin to interact with a product catalog database. So we're basically going to move our catalog from our MySQL database or whatever database we have our catalog in, and we're going to build that catalog inside of WordPress, and then we're going to create a plugin that's going to interact with that catalog so that we can communicate with our product catalog and use that information throughout WordPress. Now, this is just the first lesson of this building this plugin. The next lesson I'm going to actually cover using the product catalog data throughout the website so we can actually interact with it in our pages and our posts. But for today, we're going to look at building the admin side of the plugin. So what will we need? Well, for those of you that are new to WordPress or maybe an advocate of WordPress or been using it for years, but if you're new to it, jump out to our website and sign up for that Launching an Internet Business course. We actually cover how to build and set up a WordPress site for free using the Apache EC2 instance, Amazon EC2 instance, and we basically walk through setting up all these pieces here. So you're going to need Apache, you're going to need WordPress, you're going to need MySQL, you're going to need PHP, and you also need FileZilla. And the only reason I like FileZilla, you can use other things, but FileZilla is a pretty cool, free FTP client to move your files back and forth across your server. Today, I'm actually have quickly thrown together a Debian 7 VirtualBox instance that is currently running Apache, WordPress, MySQL, and PHP. So I actually have this running on my machine, and we'll use FileZilla to actually simulate uploading our files to the server and actually interacting with our WordPress site. So let's begin. So the bulk of this presentation today is going to be hands-on. We're actually going to be walking through doing this step by step. So to start with, here is my WordPress site that I threw together for this presentation. And just to give you guys a little idea, it is running on a little Debian server here. Is running. So Apache is running, and my files here. So in WordPress, in order to create a plugin, you have to put your plugins into the WordPress plugins folder, which lives under your WordPress instance, in my case, catalog, under a folder called WP-content. So we have plugins. We go to CD plugins. And currently, right now, we have the default plugins. So we have the Embed, Hello PHP, and Index PHP. Slide this guy over. And I'm going to slide over what our first plugin is going to look like. But before I jump to there, let me actually log into my dashboard and go to plugins. So as you can see, we have our Hello, which is our Hello PHP, and we have our the anti-spam. I can never say that right. What is it? Embed. Anywho, that one's mainly to help protect your site from blog spamming. So right now we have our two plugins. So Index basically is just the default, and then we have these two plugins which correspond to these two files here. Slide that back over. So now we need to build a WordPress plugin. So to create a plugin, you have to have a PHP file. So you create a PHP file as like such, and in our PHP file, we need to create a PHP header file. Inside of our header, we're going to define our plugin name, plugin URI, where it exists in the WordPress catalog where you can download it, brief description of what the plugin's for, who the author is, what version it is, and if you have a company website, this author will actually take you to the company website. So if we compare this over here, so the plugin name, the Hello Dolly. So Hello Dolly would be the plugin name, the plugin URI is this, is this guy here. Description, this guy right here. The author right there, the version, and the author is this, the link right here will be the author. All right, so then we save this guy as some file name .php. Well, basically the for WordPress, the best practices for building a plugin is to put your plugin files inside of a folder and name that folder the same name as your plugin. That way you prevent confusion when you're uploading your plugin or a third-party vendor downloads your plugin or a customer gets your plugin and they put it in their WordPress site. You want to make it clear to them as to that this folder is your plugin. So I've already saved this guy. He's saved out to my desktop under a Product Catalog plugin. And in my Product Catalog plugin, it's Product Catalog plugin.php. Pretty descriptive. It's a product catalog and it's a plugin. So this is the minimal information you have to provide in a plugin. So if I were to take this here, bring it back up, my FileZilla, did not mean to close that guy. We go back up to the root. So here's my plugin. And I've connected already to my site. I've gone to my path bar, www catalog, which is my WordPress, and WordPress content, plugins. I'm just going to drag this guy over here. And by doing so, I have now just installed that plugin. Boom, there's my product catalog demo. There's my description, the link to the plugin site, the link to my site, my version, and currently it's just there as a placeholder. It's not currently installed. So if I want to activate it, I click activate, and boom, our plugin is now activated. It's now installed. It's now ready to use within WordPress. Although right now there's not much to it, so currently it does nothing. So let's add the next step to our plugin. So what do we need to add? Well, let's give it some meat. So let's, before we get too far, let's add the functionality to actually start building our catalog. So the first thing we need to do is we need to install our catalog. And the first thing I want to install is product. So we're going to create a global DB version number. The version number, what's unique or nice about this is you can actually set database versions to go with your product version. So when your product version changes to say 2, then if you were to have a specific update that applies to that version of your plugin, then you could change this to 2 or create a separate if statement in here and only apply certain updates or database configuration changes for a specific plugin version. Since this is version 1, we'll just keep it at 1. Pretty simple, straightforward. Our function is going to be install. We're going to use the global WordPress database variable. This allows us to access the WordPress database without having to go mess with any of the configurations or any of the settings like that. This is the de facto. You can use this and you can access the WordPress database. Here's our database version. We're just pulling that back in. Then we're defining our table name. So since we're installing our product catalog into WordPress, we want to make sure we also use the WordPress prefix. So for example, in this current setup, oh, I know where it is. Sorry. This guy back over. Big. Oops. Yep. Okay, cool. All right. So I go in here. Inside, when we actually installed WordPress, it defined a prefix for our database. Here it is. So here's our table prefix. It's been predefined for us through the install of WordPress. The reason you kind of want to use this prefix when you install your plugin to install your databases is if you have multiple instances of WordPress on a given server, you want to have the prefix attached to your table name. That way you know that this particular instance of the table goes with this version of WordPress or this particular install of WordPress. So you really don't, if you're running multiple WordPress sites on a single server, you're going to have different prefixes. Otherwise, if you try to use the same prefix for all your tables, it'll get confused because you'll have overlaying plugins and changes for your different sites. So our prefix is going to be WP underscore. So the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use the WP database to actually get the character set. I could hard code that, but really you want to use the same character set that your database is already configured to. Then we use our SQL here. This is the same SQL script we've used since the beginning for creating our table for our products. We got our product ID, category ID, and so forth. Our primary key is going to be product ID again. Then you need to include this require once abstract path, WP admin include upgrade.php, and then do call the DB delta, which actually runs your SQL script. And then we add our option for the version number. So that's it so far. So if I'm missing one thing. So now, if I were to run this just as is, it would still display this, but it would not actually trigger this call yet because I haven't actually hooked it into the plugin. So the next action I need to do is I need to add a line, register activation hook. So this now puts this function, the install function, into the register. So when I actually click the register or activate of the plugin, here, when I click activate, it will then call and install this database table. Now, just installing the database is nice, but we kind of want to start out with some basic information just to make sure that this guy's been loaded correctly. So I'm also going to include a secondary function here that's called install data. And it's, again, going to connect to the product table, and then we're just going to loop through a bunch of inserts and create some dummy data into our database table here. And we also need to register him as well. And we'll save this guy. Deactivated. I found that you can copy your plugin over as many times as you want, but if you're doing any database changes or any core configuration changes to your plugin, you need to deactivate it before you copy your plugin over to refresh it. So before I actually do anything, let me pull this guy back over here, log into MySQL. So right now, we do not have a WP underscore product yet. So now, when I activate a plugin, refresh, activate, here and show tables again, we now have a WP product table. And if I were to select from that WP product, there's our 10 records. So we do know that by activating this guy, it created our table and it inserted some data. So we're going to go ahead and deactivate him. And unfortunately, there is no real great cleanup or easy way to clean up your database tables when you deactivate or delete your plugins from WordPress. WordPress kind of does that by default because they never know what WordPress plugins, if you try to delete some of the ones that are integrated with WordPress, it may break something. So if you absolutely want to delete a table, they basically force you to go out to MySQL and delete the tables directly. We will just drop that table. Oops. And it's no longer in our database. So, what's next? Well, we now have our database table. We have some data. Now, we need to actually have a way of connecting to it, to actually see it within our database. So the first thing we want to do, before we do anything else, is why don't we add a separate menu option for our plugin. We'll add an action to our admin menu. This is our admin menu right here. And we're going to call the function Product Catalog Plugin Setup Menu. So within this function, we'll add a menu option. We'll call the WordPress PHP method add menu page. We give it our page title, our menu title, the capabilities. You can Google which capabilities are available, but right now we're going to just manage options. And then we're going to give it a menu slug and a function. So the menu slug is going to be product cat _ plugins. This is also going to be the URL link. So when you try to navigate to this, this will be your link. And then the function we're going to call is going to be product cat plugin init. We'll drag a function in here. And then the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to echo out the hello world. So I've saved this guy. We've deactivated our plugin. Drag, drop. Refresh. Now, over here, we don't have any menu options for Product Catalog. And now we do. And if I click it, Product Catalog World. It said hello world, just Product Catalog World. All right, so that's nice. So now we have a plugin. We also have our database table. So if we go back and we look at our database, we now have our product. We also now have a menu option. Next, let's actually make this menu option functional. So let's add some additional scripts here. So we'll come in here. Add some HTML to actually display our table information. So we got product ID, name, summary, description, quantity, price. So we'll basically list out all of the columns in our table. Then we need to be able to select the information. So we have essentially we have our initial create. Now we're going to do our read. So this little guy right here lets you query the WordPress database. So again, we're going to use the WPDB. We're going to pull the prefix from our table, which, by the way, you can actually set this as a global, and then you can pull this wherever you need it. For simplicity's sake, I just included it everywhere we use it, just to keep it simple so you see it as we're working with it. Created a variable myProductList, so this will contain an array with the results from the database. And the results are going to be calling this query select product ID, name, summary, description, price, and quantity. Now, you can do star, but I find with PHP sometimes that gets squirrely, so you're actually better off defining your columns that you actually want to receive within your query, and also from table name. Now, you could also add a where condition here if you wanted to just pull a specific record ID back. All right, so that's good. That gives us the ability to pull data, but what do we do with that data? Right now, it'll just sit in this array. We need to actually do something with it and actually put it on the page. So let's loop through our data. So we create a for each loop. We take our array, myProductList, and then we essentially assign it to an object or a myProduct. So you have an array of objects or result sets of product, and then we're going to basically pull them out one at a time. And then when you pull them out, you can then essentially reference them with your variable name. Forget what the little pipe arrow is, and then the column name. So variable dash greater than product ID, name, summary, description, price, quantity. I did all these within echoes, echo TDs, so these are creating a table. You could do this by basically breaking up your the PHP file, script file. But I just wanted to keep this very simple and clean for this example. So here's our table, here's our columns, and our rows. All right, so that's good. Now what else do we need? Well, we need to close our table and close our div. So what do we have here so far? All right, so we now have a init, which really should be list. We got our product catalog list, product catalog example, have some style sheets. T-head, we define the header of our table, and T-foot defines the footer of our table. So when we're at the top or bottom of our table, we will know what the headers are for the columns. And then we have T-footer, and then T-body is where we basically store all the information in the middle of our table. So if we did all that correctly, save this guy, plugins, deactivate, up table, got this guy out there, refresh, and we activate. Okay, good. Plugin active. Everything worked smoothly. Now let's go look at Product Catalog. Hey, look, there is our catalog list. So now we know that we are creating our database table, we're populating our database table, and we can now retrieve the information and display it in a nice table format. So cool. We have now met requirements for creating and for inserting and retrieving data. Now, we've done that behind the scenes, so far the only thing the user can do right now is view a list, so they can read the list. But we need some more functionality. So let's go back out to our code. First thing I need to do is deactivate. This gets a little tedious for the example, but overall, once you start getting into this some more, you won't be going back and forth nearly as much. It's just once you get it set up, you're good. It's just this setup process, this scaffolding just takes a little bit of time. So the next thing we want to have the ability to add items to our table. So we'll add a submenu. So instead of adding a menu page, we're going to add a submenu page. And this submenu is going to call, or it's going to be a subcategory of the Product Catalog plugin. So you have to use the link, because this is also going to be the page name and the URL. So we now have our parent slug. We have our page title, menu, capabilities, menu slug, and function. None of that changes. We are going to call this one Product Cat plugin add. We need to create that function. And product function add. So we need a few things. So first, if we wanted to just add a record, we need some type of form to enter in our data. So this is just a straight up HTML form with the table, with 2 columns, one for the ID, the label of our record, and then the value. So name, summary, description, price, quantity. And we have a button at the bottom that is that calls insert that saves. Well, right now, great. I can click that button all day and it just won't do anything because we haven't actually defined our insert yet. So now we need to go up and we need to add our insert. Wrap that guy in here. So if our post is an insert, which by the way we're calling server request URI, which returns us back to this page. So it's going to call back to this function, and it's going to check, oh, it's a post, it's an insert. We're going to, again, use the WordPress database. We're going to hit the product table. Here's our product name. So the first variable you pass into your insert is your table. Then you pass an array of values, and then a third parameter would be passed in for any where condition. So here we're going to pass in the category ID, name, summary, description, price, and quantity. Oh, okay, so let's make it simple. We got name, summary, description, price, and quantity. However, even though we have defined those down here, when we do the post call and it comes back in here, we have to actually capture this information in order to use that. So the first thing we need to do before we do this is capture our post information. So if you're calling this as a get, all this will be blank, and then when it displays the form will be blank. Now, if you save, and we actually wanted to redisplay this information, all this will be pre-populated. So right now, if I do that, I need to add my div wrapper. Div wrapper, we got our header, we got our close wrapper, form, good. All that looks good. So right now, if I apply this, save, activated, copy over, reactivate, we now have two options now. We have our product catalog and we have new. Product catalog, whoops, I didn't delete my table, or I didn't truncate it first. So it duplicated the setup. But if I go to add new, hey look, there's my form for inserting records. So if I do test, some information, $2 and 78 items, save. We don't know if it did anything. However, if we go back and look at Product Catalog plugins, it did insert the record. However, we just didn't tell it to do anything. So if we go back and look at our code, all we were doing here is, okay, populate the form, click save, go update, insert the record in the table. We have a message here where, hey, product inserted, but we never use it. So we need to add some additional steps here. So one additional step that you would want to add is if post is insert, so we're coming in, we're doing the insert, echo, hey, product added, and give us a link back to the product catalog list. And don't redisplay the form. Now if we save this guy, deactivate, copy paste or FTP over, copy our table. Now we should be good again here. Back to plugin, activate, boom, product catalog, have our 10 items, add new, test something. $. Hey, product added to the product list. Boom, there it is. Now you can add some additional logic to that, or it could redirect for you automatically, but I'm just primarily walking you through the functions of building the CRUD. So we now have the ability to read, and we have the ability to add. So now we need the ability to edit. Now we go back here. Deactivate our plugin. Cool. Truncate. And we come back up here. We need to add a menu for edit. So here we have added another submenu, attaching it again to the Product Catalog plugin. And all this guy's going to do is update the product. Now, really, for a full CRUD, we'd want to do this off of the list page, but I kind of want to give you guys some practice and just give you some exposure to multiple ways of doing this. So, edit. So in our update method, again, we're going to define the WPDB, going to use prefix product, add our post. So when we call the form to post our data for our update, we're capturing all that information as it comes in and assigning it to very nice, usable variable IDs. If our post is update, you can do an you call it WP update, whereas with the insert, we call it insert. Same logic. Table name, an array list of the fields you're updating, and this is your where condition. So your third variable is your where. Setters. So again, product updated. We have our header wrapper update product, like we did with the insert. So we have, if we've updated successfully, we give the URL to go back. We don't just display the form. And then this, where you would, if we passed in the ID, we would be getting all the values and presetting these initially. Now, if I do that, save. Now that's updated. Go back over here, deactivate, product catalog, boom, 1 through 10, add new, test, blah, 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 $9, 6, save, product catalog, boom. Now I have a bug in this one currently, so for some reason it's not going to update it the way it's supposed to. We'll hopefully have that fixed by the next presentation, but when we click the update, it says it updates, but for some reason it's not updating the value. So there is a slight bug in my code here with the update, but it did call it. That should be working. Now, the other thing that I have not previously implemented, and I wanted to just kind of leave that out here, but if I come in here and I do an update, I could actually add another option here. I could actually wrap multiple actions into one method. So we could have an update and have delete. So, while I quickly look this up, does anyone have any questions?
Nope.
Sorry, my delete script disappeared. Delete from table name where ID equals ID. Oh, that's why that didn't work. Ha! Okay, now update should work. A typo from earlier. All right, so, and that should also work for delete. So delete, we can then pass in our ID that we want to delete. Product. And product. Okay, all that looks good. ID, deactivate. Space, purge, and transfer file. Refresh our plugin, activate, boom, there's our product catalog, add new, update. Oop, update was missing or delete. Oh. Figures. I get down to the very last one and then I hit a hiccup. And if you do happen to break something like I just did, it does give you the line number. 5, 235. There we go. So here's our products. Add our new product. Product's been added. Should have deleted that. ID 1. Yeah, test. All right, we got update working, but deletes failed. Delete failed. Delete. Updated. Product deleted. Again. Oh. See anything jumping out at you, Rob?
Not offhand. Is ID product ID? What's the?
Yeah, ID is, well, ID, oh, yeah, thank you. You hit it on the head. There we are. One more time. Refresh. Activate. All right, so now we have our select. We have our insert. We have our create. We have our read. We have our update. And should now have, oh, deleted the Delete didn't update. Oh, bugger. Alright, I'll debug that, like I said, before the next one. But that's pretty much it. So now we have a fully functional plugin that allows us to create, read, update, and delete information within our database. So we've now simulated, so if you go back through the earlier lessons, we have now pretty much recreated the second lesson where we created the database. We've created the database in WordPress, and we now have essentially, through a plugin, created an application that interacts with our database. And in our case here, the plugin being within WordPress. Back to the presentation. So let's recap. So we've created a WordPress plugin to now take our product catalogs and use it for something a little more useful within WordPress. And why WordPress? Well, WordPress is a nice little site for blogging, for creating websites. So it makes sense to have a database and a way of interacting with the database and storing some information. So it could be a product catalog, it could be a customer form, it could be invoices, it really could be anything. This plugin is essentially just a very simple way for you to create a CRUD plugin that will create, read, update, and delete information inside of a database, inside of WordPress. So next lesson in our product catalog, we'll discuss how to expand the WordPress plugin to be able to embed it into our product information, vendor information, into the actual website, our pages, our posts, and make it a little more user-friendly and functional throughout the application. Now, we could do this in two ways. We can use short codes to embed them into the actual pages and posts, or we can actually create a login that allows the user to come to the admin page and be able to enter in some information through the admin site without fully having to have administrative rights or visibility to the rest of the WordPress admin. Then we will also talk about reporting in the future. So now that you start collecting this information, you start building up these product catalogs, you need a way of quickly reporting on the information. Now, granted, the nice list view is great, but we have no filtering capabilities, and we don't have a really nice dashboard to look at our product catalog. So we'll look at that within WordPress, and we'll also look at that in other ways of either just doing straight-up query reports through the database or creating, like exporting it into spreadsheets or other type of reporting mechanisms. Any questions at this point?
Question. You have to worry about like the memory when you're creating about what the database in WordPress like.
Yes, to an extent. If it's a small database, nothing too elaborate. Now, granted, this is a product catalog. You would expect it. This could grow to be hundreds and thousands of products.
Mm-hmm.
As you get larger and your database grows, yes, memory potentially can become a concern. However, depending upon how you're pulling and reading and using the database, your biggest caveat would probably be storage. If you have a very small server hosting your WordPress site and your database gets very large, you're going to run out of storage, probably before you run out of memory, or vice versa. If it's very application-heavy interaction with the database, then you'll need more memory to keep pulling that data back and forth to use it within your application, within WordPress. But then the database might be a little bit lighter in that sense. Or you have both situations, so you would potentially run into storage and memory issues.
So, your Doctor Who website, did you use this as the database, or you?
I bought one way back when it first started.
Gotcha.
But it doesn't meet my needs. So that is where this whole idea and this whole concept of the product catalog came from. So I'm still adding additional pieces. At the end of the day, once I get this all done, I'm going to publish this little plugin either in the WordPress store, or I may just drop it out in GitHub or Bitbucket or somewhere like that, and just let you guys have it. Now I'm still building the professional version of this with the styling and all the extra bells and whistles. For instance, in my product catalog, I'm going to have additional things where you're going to be able to connect to Commission Junction or to Amazon or to some of the affiliate sites. And not just that, but be able to connect your affiliate ID codes with your product ID. So if your product happens to be on Amazon, on Commission Junction, you can actually tie that particular link to multiple sites. And I'm going to take it one step further on mine, where it's going to automatically ping it maybe once a month, once a week, whatever, and refresh the pricing information or some of the additional product information that's in my database with the affiliate. That way I'll always know whoever's the cheapest or most expensive, however I want to hear how I'm displaying the information. I can pull the latest and greatest and always know that what I'm displaying is as close to accurate as the last time I pulled the data. Okay. Good question. Any other questions?
Is there a as you're building out those forms, is there an easier way? Did you just sort of do the echoes to build out your pages because that was just part of simplicity, or is there an easier way to essentially to put your forms together and display stuff out?
This was primarily for simplicity. Another way of doing it.
And I guess sort of as a follow-up, is there a way to essentially put, essentially use like normal HTML, maybe with some embedded PHP pages, and have them live within that look and feel?
Yes. And typically what you would want to do is you would want to break them down into individual PHP files too. So you would create a plugin directory path to get your current root directory, and then like you would pull out, like Arcat, the list, create, update. I would pull each of these sections out, and then you could do the split files with the PHP. You could break it out that way as well. I just did this for simplicity's sake, so everything kind of lined up. It was all right there, and it made copying and pasting it easier for the presentation.
Okay.
Like I said, by the end of the next class, this will look a lot prettier. It'll be a lot more polished. I just decided to forego the polishing piece because I started getting into short codes and started getting into templates and layouts, and I felt that was a separate discussion. So I wanted to keep this one kind of plain vanilla, and then the next one we'll get into a little bit more of that, making it the styling and kind of how you would put the code in a little cleaner.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think this is, it's good to just see it from the brute force approach, for lack of a better term, and then that'll give us more time to focus on the cleaning it up and putting it upside, separately.
Right, and that'll get us into like creating your own custom style sheets, and then you could even potentially create your own themes. So like you gotta be careful with that though. But what you could potentially do, which is where I'm trying to go, is I can embed a product ID, and then it will basically embed the product look and feel. Everything I want as to how it's going to display. It's going to pop it in there. But I want to be able to give a couple variations on that. So one might be a full descriptive, like a product page, or it might just be an ad. So it may just be a very small image, the product name, and price. Or I may want something in between, or maybe a carousel products. So there's a couple variations of this that'll be in the final product, and I'll cover a couple of those in the next lesson. But like I said, for now, this was just basically, like you said, brute force. But I want to basically take you through the concepts. Again, it is still rehashing, building the database, doing the CRUD. Really, at the end of the day, this is something that you pretty much need for any type of database or any type of data manipulation. You need to know how to create, read, update, delete information from a database. So it's just another way of doing it. We did it in WordPress, and now you can actually take this and kind of just start playing around building your own WordPress plugins. So with that, and if there are no other questions, wrap it up. So thank you for coming today and listening to the Product Catalog discussions. If you have any questions, comments, or requests for assistance, please feel free to contact us at info@developernerd.com or contact us on the site or in the blog. Have a great day.